we are joined by Dr. Chandler James, Assistant Professor of Political Science at the University of Oregon. I'm getting better at that introduction with every week. How are you this week?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, man. Good to have you back as usual. Let's start right where we left off. We're talking about Mahmoud Khalil, a student with a green card at Columbia University, not convicted of any crimes, but currently being detained and being threatened with deportation. And when we talk about First Amendment rights and these sorts of protections, does this sort of activity leave you concerned at all about those protections?
Well, protest activity is a way to draw attention to your cause, and oftentimes that can get media attention, public attention, and the idea is to influence public policy through the activity. So the campus protests that occurred last year in relation to the war in Gaza generated a lot of attention from the media, from politicians, and this person was at the center of Columbia's protest.
Which was at the center of all of the protests.
Which was at the center of so many of the campus protests around the country.
Yeah.
And he very clearly didn't hide his face. He wanted to be visible and to be a point of connection, personal connection with people between the administration and the protesters, but also in front of the media. One of the risks of protest is, the backlash. And he said that he's received a lot of backlash from people who oppose him, but also now the federal government, and he worried about being a target. So I do think that when you're engaging in protests like that, it's important to recognize the costs, the potential cost. And this is one of them. As someone without a green card or who's not a permanent citizen, this is a major risk for him to engage in activity on such a salient and high-profile issue. At the same time, I think it should send chills down people who are concerned about what the government might do if they find you engaging in protest activity that they think is unpalatable or they dislike. I think one of the major issues that we should consider is the fact that he hasn't been charged with any crime. And barring a crime, it would be concerning for someone to be deported on the basis of engaging in their free speech.
Free speech protected rights to protest while holding a green card. So it's not like this is part of that swath of deportations from earlier with illegal residents or illegal migrants here in the country. From a political standpoint, this is a party that, an administration that rose to power much on the back of a free speech platform. They partner very close with Elon Musk, who bought Twitter to present what they called, that public space for talking freely. This type of stuff is what free speech protections are all about, not the stuff that happens on social media. Does it surprise you to see this coming from this administration, which rose to power on a promise of free speech?
Well, I think that it's clear that Trump and Elon Musk are people that are really concerned about politically correct speech and the supposed stifling effect that has on public discourse. But it's not surprising to me in the sense that Trump is very opposed to the campus protest related to the war in Gaza. And this is kind of red meat for his political base. This demonstrates for his base that he's going after people that are anti-Israel, anti-America. It's kind of related to the left. And in that respect, it's not surprising whatsoever that Trump is turning his attention to this particular person. But it does fly into the face of these proclamations of being really strongly pro-free speech.
Let's shift our focus here while we have you still. A government shutdown looms right now. The end of the week would be a deadline to get the government funded to continue operations. Are you at all concerned that you may see a shutdown, or do you think another last-minute budget will be passed once again as this has become sort of a political tool?
Well, the House Republicans have passed a bill to fund the government and has sent it to the Senate. And the Senate, in the Senate, you need 60 votes, so Democrats are going to have to be brought on board to pass
they
the
have a
bill.
little more political capital on that side.
But it puts the Democrats in a bind because essentially it gets the Republicans could say, hey, like if you don't support the bill that we've put forward, then you are the one who's responsible for the government shutdown, as opposed to President Trump and the Republicans. And so the Senate Democrats have some leverage, but in many respects, they're out on a limb. Politically, they don't have a ton of power outside of their votes with the 10 votes that would require the 10 plus votes that you need to break a filibuster.
Now, the thing is, we talk about this political theater element of some of this all the time, but the Democrats have very, very little power at the federal level right now. Do you feel that there's a chance that they try to flex the little political muscle they have by delaying this budget passing or anything to continue this budget resolution conversation, since they do have that little bit of power in the Senate?
Well, I think that would expose them to major risk. Currently, the markets are roiling due to Trump's tariffs and his major shakeup of the federal government. If they are to take the initiative to shut down the government, any fallout in the market might be pointed toward the Democrats instead of Trump's tariff actions. So they have a risky game here, right? They want to influence this policy. At the same time, they want to let Trump be responsible for whatever the outcome of his actions are toward tariffs in the federal government. And so, they don't have a lot of power, but they have enough, and they need to be careful with how they use it.
Unsurprisingly, we have more topics to discuss, but not enough time. I could spend, like I said last week, we'll throw the whole show away. I'll just have you on for a half hour. Speaking about this budget, though, we did discuss it pretty at length last week, and that's available at NBC 16's YouTube page. You can watch that interview with Mr. James in full, Dr. James, sorry about that, and get a little more context for this budget resolution, our battle that goes on. Dr. James, as always, great to have you on. We'll have you back next week.
Thanks for having me. See you next week.